Hello, welcome to Reverence for Rêverie. This podcast is for those who know, not just in the mind, but in their marrow, that we are not here to explain ourselves into belonging, but instead to embody a frequency the world forgot how to listen for. I'm not attempting to teach you something that you don't know, and this isn't simply a conversation about symbolism. It is a symbolic act in and of itself. It's the field where your interior life is no longer the background, but instead it's the blueprint. Today's transmission is called When the Signal Won't Translate, Living Symbolically in a Literal World. And this one is for the ones who speak in images, who feel poetry or song or art move through them uncontrollably, and who carry truths that do not fit in the headlines, who sense more than they can say, and ache with the weight of a knowing that language so often betrays. There is a grief to being a symbolic being in a world that is obsessed with literalism, to holding on to frequencies that refuse to collapse into clarity, and to watching your deepest truths get flattened into something shareable, knowing that it still doesn't do it justice. We live in a culture that demands proof before presence, outcome before offering, theory over process. And so the symbolic, the imaginal, the poetic, the archetypal is dismissed as indulgent, unproductive, or impractical at best, and delusional, dangerous, or a mental illness at worst. But it's none of those things. It is intelligence. It is structure. It is a way of knowing that predates explanation and will outlast every system built on binary logic. Mark Solms very recently published something that some psychoanalysts have always intuited, that consciousness arises not from the cortex, but from the id, from that murky, affective, unrefined terrain of feeling. The place Freud once deemed irrational, the chaotic seat of impulse, fantasy, drive. To Freud, the ego was the reality-based, conscious mediator. But Solms reveals something much more complex, that the ego, too, is largely unconscious, and that what we call I is not a fixed pilot at the helm, but rather a composite of processes that emerge from the depths. The ego can become conscious, yes, but only when it is thought within, when we dare to reflect, to feel, to suffer our meaning into awareness. So what does it mean to think within? It means to enter the image rather than simply analyze it, to let the body speak before the mind interrupts, to allow that trembling of grief, the flicker of intuition, the quiet ache of a symbolic truth to become part of consciousness, not the obstacles to it. Solms may speak to the intersection of neuroscientists and psychoanalysts, but we who live this field know what he's saying, that the deepest truths of self, of soul, and of sovereignty emerge not from polished thought, but from felt reality, not from what can be measured, but actually from what refuses to be. Ian McGilchrist, in his book, The Master and His Emissary, says that the right brain is more intelligent than the left. Not less, not equal, more. Because it is the hemisphere that sees context, that lives in paradox, that recognizes the sacred in the unspoken. And yet we've built a whole world governed by the emissary, the left brain, the part that categorizes, separates, explains, a world that treats clarity as the highest currency and complexity as a flaw. So, my beloved listeners, I am here to tell you this. You are not crazy. Do not let this culture gaslight you into the belief that your way of knowing is somehow less than rational, the academic, the categorical. This is the dissonance that you feel. And it's not a personal failing. It's a cultural pathology. You are not too much. The world has grown too narrow. To live symbolically in a literal world is to walk through the marketplace of meaning with pockets full of gold that no one knows how to spend. It's to hold images that could rearrange timelines and feel the weight of them rot in rooms that are just not ready to receive. There's a particular ache that comes with trying to translate a truth too soon. Not everything is meant to be understood. Some things are simply meant to be felt, to be entered, to be lived into and then left to breathe. Not broken down, systematized, and ordered into descriptive mechanisms. And yet, we're always told to explain ourselves, to collapse the sacred into content, to render the mysterious into something more marketable. But here's what I've learned. Translation is not owed. The beautiful, unique signal that you carry is not here to be diluted for mass approval. It's not a product. It's not a pitch. It's a living frequency, a strand of myth, memory, and medicine. And it's here to resonate precisely, potently with those who are ready to remember. And they will find you. I say this with my full chest. They will find you. Not because you perform accessibility, but because you speak with fidelity to the field. And that field draws others of similar resonance in, like a gravitational pull that is felt through dream and instinct and ache. There are those who are thirsty for depth. They just don't know what to call it yet. They feel the emptiness of surface level thinking, but they haven't found the language for longing. And when you speak the symbol, raw, uncollapsed, unperformed, they feel the pulse. They remember. They don't need the whole map. They only need to feel the root. Still, at times, there is a place for translation, not as a compromise, but as sacred offering. Translation is sacred when it arises from love, not fear. When it bends toward the listener, not to shrink the message, but to extend the bridge. I know what it's like to be the only one in the room speaking in symbols, to feel the electric beauty of a thought that's rich and layered and archetypal, only to be met with blank stares. To be misunderstood not because you lacked clarity, but because the frequency itself could not be held. The mental imagery, the synthesis, the inner worlds that are blooming in real time, so vivid, so alive, only to be swallowed by silence. The field foreclosed, the current collapsed. And yet, there are those standing right at the edge of remembering, not fully awake, but not fully asleep either. The ones who are aching to come alive, but need one thread, one word, one image to cross the threshold. You don't have to translate for everyone, but you may be called to translate for them. Translation, when it's done in service of the signal, not its dilution, is initiation. It is the sacred act of meeting another in the liminal without compromising the source. But forced translation, done from fear of being misunderstood or unseen, is soul fragmentation, the steady degradation of a current that is meant to flow, a frenetic incoherence that forecloses the sacred opportunity. It is the betrayal of the signal in order to be allowed in. And what you gain in approval, you lose in potency. You become small, quiet, unseen. So here's the distinction that I offer. Let your knowing be felt before it's explained. Let the field lead, and let the symbol be sovereign. If someone asks, what do you mean by that? You don't have to answer right away. You can say, feel it first. You can say, well, let's stay with it a little longer. You can also say, there's more in the silence than I can give you in the words. This is not obscurity. It is leadership. And it's okay to be misunderstood or to let people sit in their own unknowing, especially when it's in the interest of their own initiation. To those of you carrying a signal that doesn't translate, I see you. You're not incoherent. You're not inaccessible. You are living in a symbolic register that has not yet been remembered by the culture that we're in today. You speak into the field, you move in image, you lead in transmission, and do not, for one moment, believe this to be a detour from impact. It is the path of initiatory power. So let me leave you here. You are not here to simplify your essence for the ease of digestion. You are here to sharpen perception, to trust your own knowing, to stop flattening your signal just so it can be recognized by those who aren't even ready to receive it. What you're carrying in your field, your coherence, your imagery, your symbolic intelligence, opens the field for others simply by proximity. And this is not a metaphor I'm using. This is not magic. This is not woo. This is physics. This is psychoanalysis. This is how the unconscious field works. What I'm saying may not sound logical, and that's because it's not born in logic. But it is true, and it doesn't need to be understood to be real. It doesn't need to be believed to be effective. It simply must be lived. And if you're listening and you're not quite grasping every word that I'm saying, but something in you is leaning in, something in your chest is fluttering, something is maybe softening or stirring in your body, let that be enough. You don't need to grasp it with your mind. Let it work on you. Let the symbol find you. Let the field remember itself through your body. Because you are not here to be fully known. You are here to be felt. And the ones who are ready, they will recognize you by your resonance, not by explanation. So speak your signal, hold your frequency, tend the symbol that lives in your belly, even when no one is understanding it yet. Because meaning is not made in the mind. It's made in the field. And you are the field. Thank you so much for listening and communing with me this week. This podcast is here for the ones who carry depth in a world that is craving performance, for the translators of the soul, even when the world forgets the language. Today, I ask you simply, stay with the symbol and the signal. Let it speak through you. and let the reverie lead you, and I'll meet you there.